Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim O'Connor today.
We could call it like
Tim O'Connor.
The famous Tim O'Connor. The one, the only Tim O'Connor. I don't know. We could do that. We don't have to.
So welcome to the show, folks. Again, we are this is going to be Monday's show. So happy Memorial Day to everyone. Hope you're having a safe and wonderful weekend. And of course, Memorial Day, I always want to mention too that we honor the memory of people who died in war, and our call to action is to have fewer people die in war. That's always the hope.
The call to action can be to, I hate war, but I respect my military friends. I respect their service to our country, and I respect the risks that they've taken and the losses that families have suffered. I respect all that, and I love them, and they have my heart, and I want less of it going on in the future. I do.
More families coming home, especially when we get involved in conflicts that we have no business being in. That's the goal. Fewer families who are losing, service members and having to remember them on this day. But we will remember the folks who did die in service. But moving on though, I did say at the beginning, I said the famous Tim O'Connor. I saw that you got a little bit of attention this week.
I did.
Definitely not going to let that fame go to your head. But tell us what happened this week.
So perhaps people remember we talked about this tractor issue in Norwich, New York, where the student resource officer impounded, in collusion with the administration of Norwich High School, impounded this kid's tractor, who he brought it to school to do some work, and so basically, this guy, Whistling Diesel, some famous YouTube guy, I guess he wrecks really expensive vehicles, so some people hate him for that. And he does stuff with tractors, and he's funny, he's funny. So he put up this bounty of, if you brought your tractor to work or to school, he would pay you $500 per tractor. And then people were asking how much for a push mower, and he's like, I guess I'll send 200. So this guy helped sponsor a really, really fun event. And of course, I happened to be off from work that day, and I joined in. And there's a guy wandering around with a really expensive looking camera, and he's like, hey, does anybody want to say anything? And I'm like, well, I'm like a trained radio professional, so I should probably step up right now and say something, which I did. I ranted about petty tyrants and on the grand scale of things, how this is an injustice, but I get that it's not the biggest injustice in the world. But if we take stands here and now and we send clear, positive messages, that we do okay. And the school had no right to impound that kid's tractor. Certainly they could have discussed the issue with him.
Yeah.
But so
they did tell him not to bring it though. Because Dad called in and he said oh yeah, no, they told him not to bring it in. He did anyway. I'm not saying it was right to impound it. That was probably a bit too far.
Well, yeah, they inferred or implied that driving a tractor is illegal on the roads, and I am pretty sure it's not. And as a matter of fact, even that day, there were police officers. One in particular, police officer brought his own tractor to this thing, so it was honestly a pretty positive, proactive day. And I checked right before the show. This face at 6 seconds, the first 6 seconds of Whistling Diesel's latest upload is Tim O'Connor, the Freedom variant.
And how many views did it get?
Tyranny. Huh?
How many views did it get? Go ahead.
2.9 million. 2.9 million.
Wow, 2.9 million saw that face, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening here on WYSL, you cannot see that face because Tim is on the radio. But if you're listening on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Kevin Wilson pages, or Tim O'Connor pages, you can see the famous, and as our Facebook commenter Will Phillips says, the infamous Tim O'Connor.
He's probably closer to right. If I had a penny for every single one of those YouTube views, I would pay off the national debt, Kevin.
Well, I gotta math that one out a little bit. I don't know.
It's got to be at least $30 trillion.
I should run for Congress with that kind of math.
I would be good at it for sure.
Yeah. No, but again, this is a fascinating story. It's interesting to see, like, how engaged the audience is with that. And yeah, I mean, I agree that the school probably stepped overboard, even though they did tell them not to do it.
They did
tell them it's a bit of civil disobedience.
They did tell him not to, but they didn't really have the right to tell him not to. They maybe could have, but they didn't write any tickets, right? Like, they didn't say, "Hey, you parked in a really bad spot," anything like that. They simply impounded his tractor, which is something we stand against, like the illegal seizure of people's property. There was no attempted justification of it. It was just, "Hey, we told you not to do this. We're impounding your tractor," and that got a lot of people upset.
Yeah. No, I suppose so. So it is. Speaking of you being famous, though, I know you're continuing to rack up the views on TikTok.
Oh, that's correct. Hey, so I posed a question, and I think people on TikTok like questions. So I got some good responses. I posed a question about, give me your solution to this Texas shooting, to these angry young men, making this huge mistake, committing suicide by cop, hurting people in the process. And I got some really interesting responses, right? There's some standard boilerplate in there, like, "Oh, guns are blah blah blah," and I get it. Like, we should have a real conversation about guns in our society and their role. I, of course, am in favor of your ability to defend yourself against anything. Okay, that's how I see my natural right. That's how I think the Bill of Rights basically delineates our natural rights. So one of the interesting suggestions was, like, and so it's almost got to where armed teachers is almost like boilerplate in these situations. But one guy said, like, we need more security in schools, and more people should be carrying. And I think in the past I've been very much in favor of that, especially in areas like Chicago and New York City, where there's a pretty respectable amount of crime, and people have been made afraid by the government to exercise their liberty. And so that was one that I liked. What do you think about that one? Am I on base with that? That guy on base with that?
Well, so, like, generally, I think, like, you should have the right to carry in most situations. I mean, the interesting thing about this is, I believe Texas already allows teachers to carry in school if they want to. So, like, that's already a thing that, like, exists here, but not even if it's something that people have the option to do. Not every teacher is going to choose to exercise that choice anyway.
That's correct, and that is also your right? That's also included in your natural rights. And then there was, of course, the mocking me for using the term natural rights. But I if we want to explore that, I think that you could basically convince everyone that they believe in some form of natural right, and then once you convince them of one natural right, where do the rest of their natural rights begin and end, right? And
yeah, right.
so,
Again, what rights are inherent to you, inherent to your being, inherent to your humanity, that apply to every single other person on earth? I mean, if you think that all of your rights come from government, then what's to stop someone from going into government and taking away those rights? Not just the right to bear arms, the right to self-defense, but the right to speech, the right to habeas corpus, the right to a fair trial, right to due process. All those, those are the processes that are created by the state in some of those cases, but you still have the right to do that. All right, we're going to talk about more of these solutions in just a few minutes, though. We are heading towards break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Got Kevin Wilson and Tim O'Connor here. Appreciate y'all. We're going to be back in just a few. Talk to you soon. All right.
Don't forget, you internet viewers, you get bonus content. I'm gonna go grab myself another adult beverage. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna, you do that. I'm gonna have a coughing fit.
I see that, Kevin. I'll be right back.
I don't know why. I just got over Rona, folks, and now I'm like, what do I have now? Is it allergies? Do I got flu? I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. I feel terrible. But so I'll try not to cough too much into the mic. My Wednesday show, I want to have a very serious show. Kept coughing into the mic the whole time. But thanks everyone for joining us today. Get to some of the comments from Shelly. Dang, these kids would have been rich in my school. Yeah, $500. That's it's not nothing. I would have appreciated that. Could have ridden my grandpa's John Deere riding mower. That probably would have counted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, he even paid like $300 for riding mowers. So there were people bringing in
Okay.
small tractors and big tractors. It was great.
Yeah.
It was really, I felt as though it was a really positive experience overall. Like it was very, very, it was just fun, man.
Cool.
People were cool. The police were there to direct traffic because they were afraid of a big backup. But even that didn't really happen. They had kind of arranged for a place for the tractors to park and stuff like that. The dad got some pretty good coverage as well. And he was nice about it. He's like, we just feel like we've got the right to do that.
Yeah.
And that's important. And my son was a good kid who, I guess he's a good kid, and this is one of the things he does to make money. Like he bought this tractor himself and all of those things, So it was like there was a lot of people were very disappointed, and yeah, and Shelly, there isn't an FFA there. That's one of the concessions the school is making is they're going to have it take your tractor to school day and open a chapter of the FFA. I did post a link to that Whistling Diesel's YouTube. So I probably taken right over 5 million views with what
with what we're doing. Yeah, no, it's gonna pull it right over the top. Yeah, they're gonna wonder, oh, what bump did we got? Well, we got the free solution bump.
That's right. So let me pull up some of those responses on the TikTok-y thing too.
Yeah,
because there's one there in particular that I think people will find interesting. But then there's some. I think when we talk, well, I better save it for the radio show.
Yeah. I mean, you found your responses. I mean, we talked about the armed teachers thing, and we could go into more of the gun control thing if you want, or we can go into the armed security officers. So I don't know if they got you, but like narrowing the points of entry, that type of stuff.
We can
Which people are roasting Ted Cruz for like really badly explaining that.
Yeah.
But like it is a thing that's worth talking about in a lot of campuses. Like there's only one way you can get in. There's a bunch of ways you can get out of the school for fire safety purposes, but usually there's a single point of control. And that's something that existed at my high school is after 8 a.m. you can only go in through the front door and you had to, and I think now you have to be buzzed in. But childcare center I worked at, same thing. Like, at only one point entry and you had to be buzzed in.
Yeah. That to me that makes sense.
So curious to what happened there. But all right, should we go back in a sec?
We should.
At 14.
Quiet up there.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by the infamous Tim O'Connor. And we're talking about some of the responses that he got to his badge. He threw out the question on, one of his other social media channels on TikTok, what are solutions to this? And we're chatting over the break about a few things, but like we talked about the armed teachers thing, and it's sort of a thing in Texas. I know folks are looking to expand that, but again, you can't force every teacher to do that. And so like there's still going to be gaps in terms of protection there. Like it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer if people have no reason to believe that a place is empty of people able to defend themselves, they are less likely to choose that place as a target. I am sure that is accurate.
Yeah.
And so there's always this thing where, hey, we just spent a bunch of money. we should have spent it on this, right? So we just
Yeah.
sent $40 billion to Ukraine. We could have taken that $40 billion and fortified our schools and hired a bunch of security guards and
I
stuff like
mean,
that.
so like, to be honest, like, a lot of schools did do that after the Parkland shooting. Like, they spent a whole bunch of money on both kind of increasing, hardened security measures and school resource officers. So we'll talk about, like, the security measures thing first. Again, like, Ted Cruz is kind of getting roasted for this, where he's talking about, like, one door in, one door out, whatever.
Right.
I'll be a little bit more generous. Was like a lot of schools, like, do want their buildings to have, like, a single entrance point if possible. It's not possible in every school because some schools are multi buildings. You have to have people going in and out,
Correct.
etc. But, like, in a school that can be contained within, like, a certain amount of space, or a campus that can be contained, you can do things like have key cards for single points of entry, lots of exit points. Like, my high school, Oriskany High School is relatively small. After the 8 a.m. bell, you could only get in through the front door. And that was like a general security measure. Like, you had to go in, and the front office staff would see you walk in, and general security measure. Plus, then if I was too late, that's the way you'd have to go in to sign in.
And get caught for being
exactly.
late.
I had to make sure that I got to one of the back doors before they locked it when I rolled in like 20 minutes late.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that point too. When I was young, there was people were bringing every truck practically. Our hunters had their guns during hunting season, and actually in the spring too, because woodchucks. Everybody wanted to get woodchucks out of fields because they injure cows and injure horses. So it was kind of like a regular thing, and we didn't seem to have this school violence. There was only like 3 mass shootings at schools from 1903 to 1990, and then after 1990 this thing basically exploded.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot more. I mean, like, the left's explanation of that is the loosening of gun laws, even though the Brady bill happened in the mid 90s, which kind of the timeline doesn't make a ton of sense there.
That's an inaccuracy, right? So what has changed? I don't want to speculate on the answer to that. Well, I do, but I'm not going to tonight. We could have a whole show about what has changed, and maybe I will get into it. But actually, I probably, with one of the answers, one of my favorite answers, I may end up going right down that wormhole for everybody. So the standard armed and armored school guards, and we point at, not all the information is out there yet, guys. Okay, so I don't know. Protocol causes problems sometimes in police response. That's what I'm going to say right now about whether the police should have breached or not breached. And then there's the issue of, did some of the security measures actually prevent the police officers from breaching? And that may be also true. So
it was a locked door, right? And that's what they're saying. Like, they had to go find a key, and that was, they weren't able to get in because a lot of the classroom doors are tough. You can't just kick in the door anymore for that reason, because most of the classrooms, when they do a lockdown response, like, they shut their doors, and they're meant for someone to knock it in. And again, that's part of it. And that's a fair point. Just because you brought it up now in terms of, like, the police officers and how they engaged and how long they took. That 12 minutes of them interacting with the shooter, before he entered the school, like, how the heck did they not resolve the situation there? How did they let him go further into the school? Like, you have these police officers who are, again, well armed, well trained, against an 18-year-old. Like, how did that happen after he was in a car accident? Are you kidding me?
I'm going to say that I think that based on the news that I've heard, the articles that I've read, I do think that there is going to be a valid criticism of especially that early part of the response. Okay. That very first part. After that, once the situation's out of control, I don't.
Right. I mean, so, like, Dave is talking about this here. The cops had 45 minutes to wait for Border Patrol for this. So like, this is the part. Like, again, I watched the videos, and it is enraging. Like, when the police officers have not resolved the situation yet, the parents are begging for them to go in and get their kids. And I feel that. I'm like, I would want to, like, knock them over and run right in. Like, I think every parent, felt that way. I also get why police officers don't want more random people running into a situation like this.
I get
Like
it too. I
I
get
get
it.
it. It is it is infuriating. Like the part that makes me mad is they weren't able to resolve it quickly, even even though this town is spending 40% of their budget on the police, and they have a SWAT team for a town of 16,000 people with the promise that they would be able to resolve situations like this. But when it came up, they failed, and 19 kids died as a result of that failure.
I'm a big fan of talking about when government fails for sure,
Yeah,
Kevin. But I
and not,
think
and
that
again, not to be clear,
right,
the shooter, his evil act is what did this, but like
yeah.
it is frustrating that like government promises us that safety, that protection. Just give us all the money, give us all the gear, and we're going to keep you safe. And
Well, let me
that
ask you.
did not happen.
Yeah, can they keep those promises? Could Joe Biden cure COVID? Okay, can the government keep the promises that it makes? That's a fair and valid question. Or do they simply make those promises to trade for votes and to trade on people's mental and emotional state? And I think we all in this audience and the people that are listening to us online understand what the reality of that is. It's obvious, okay? There
Yeah.
is going to be no perfect safety granted by government, no matter how hard they want to virtue signal on that subject.
Yeah, and
Period.
let me get to a couple comments here. Paula on Facebook says an 18-year-old who had just bought a gun and was not apparently an experienced shooter. Yeah, again, how does that happen? How are they outgunned in this situation? And again, Dave on Facebook brings the parents holding back.
They did.
Jared on Facebook says shocking but true. The question is, do we want to further militarize the police to respond to this? Again, my answer is no,
Hard no,
absolutely
hard
not.
pass because it still won't solve this
No.
issue.
And then I do want to get to this comment from Dave, and it says it's the cop's job to go in, not wait for the backup. Dave, unfortunately, you're wrong. It is not. There's a constitutional case, a Supreme Court case, excuse me, Castle
Yeah.
Rock versus Gonzalez, and police have no legal obligation to protect you, even
None.
when, like, in the process of enforcing the law. Of enforcing, in this case, it was a restraining order. They chose not to enforce a restraining order, and it resulted in the death of there were 2 or 3 children.
Yeah.
Go look up that case. Castle Rock v. Gonzalez, and yeah, the police have no legal obligation to protect you. Again, some will, put their lives on the line for a situation, but we've seen it again in this situation, in the situation in Parkland. A lot of times, police don't charge in. They don't jump in and resolve the situation quickly, even when it may very well save lives.
Yeah.
And again, that's the part that's infuriating to those parents who are sitting out there for 40 plus minutes, wondering like how is this not done yet? How have you not gone in and taken control of the situation? And again, some parents did, even after getting tased, beaten, arrested, did end up getting into the school to get their kids out. And by the way, too, some police officers apparently had gone into the school and got their own kids out. But
oh, really?
yeah, no, there's a press clip of
Oh,
a press spokesperson talking about how some police officers went to school and got their own kids out.
wow.
Just
Okay,
wild.
that's stuff that I hadn't heard that. So look,
Yeah.
I've got one to explore. Okay.
All right. Oh, just one last point on this.
Oh,
Again,
please, yeah.
my kind of my big point on this is like more police officers in schools does not necessarily resolve this issue. And like that is an example of that.
Nothing that we do without creating a happier, more self-sufficient society will fix any of these issues. Okay, more respectful of everyone.
Don't count on the government to save you either. Like plan accordingly.
That's one big point.
Just because there's a police officer there does not mean he or she is going to jump in and help you.
All right, so I got one, Kevin. I got one that was weird, right? It's weird,
right.
but so. And at first, I thought maybe he had responded to the wrong thing, But I got thinking about it. This guy comes out with, "Hey, cancel all foreign oil for 3 years. We have a 10-year oil reserve. Sell gas for $1 a gallon. That money goes straight to distribution companies." Anyways, he gets into this complicated explanation. But what he's actually getting to is that if our society was happier and more productive, yes. Would that solve some of this problem? Would people with a purpose solve some of these problems? If we hadn't And we have, guys, look, we have been teaching children to be emotional. Okay. We've been teaching human beings that their emotions are superior to their behavior, and that the ends of their emotion is what's the most important thing to them. And that,
Mhm.
Kevin, and everyone out there, that is a big piece of the problem. Happy, productive people with a purpose. Okay. That will help solve some of these weird issues, these things that we're fighting over.
Yeah, people who feel lost and hopeless and desperate, and then
Sure.
fortunately, and again, it's just a matter of, well, how do you identify and intervene with those folks?
And again, yeah, mental
Reeling them
health
in.
was a very popular answer as well,
Yeah,
right? Like, we need better mental health training or treatment, I guess is the point that they're making. I
yeah.
don't know how we force people that are crazy to get mental health though.
No, it's tough. All right, we are running out of time for this segment though. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Now I'm coughing, Kevin. You see what you did to me? I muted mine as well.
Yeah. Got it. There's a bunch of good
This is a
comments in here
passionate
too.
subject, right? It's tough
Yeah,
to be talking about this stuff.
this is tough, but I mean, like I said, I was about to cry on my Wednesday show talking about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's brutal what's going on. And
yeah.
look, I don't know. Like, Kathy Hochul wants to raise the age of buying a gun to 21. I don't know. Like, could that solve the problem? We look at 3 of the last big school shootings. They were by kids under 21.
Yeah. There's that impulse control argument, right? That's what they
Sure.
use to justify raising the drinking age. 18, 19, 20-year-olds have less
Right.
impulse
And
control,
then
and therefore,
we shouldn't be saying, all right, you can't buy a gun, you can't drink a beer, you can vote though. Okay, like, that's ridiculous. If their brains aren't mature enough to vote or to buy a
oh,
gun or drink a beer, then they shouldn't be
oh
allowed to
yeah,
vote.
and also you can join the U.S. military too. Like you're only allowed to pick up a gun and kill people if it's on behalf of the state.
At the
It's
behest of our whoops, I'm not going to go down that road. I have funny ways
yeah.
of saying that might get us in trouble.
Yeah, but I did want to get that. Like there was a bunch of comments in here that were
Great.
pretty good. Gene said 1 point entry and multiple exits is also a good idea. Yeah. So I don't know about this. Yeah, I've seen something like this. I didn't know it was a school, but like the biggest school shooting was near Wounded Knee, and teacher and students were killed by our army. Yeah, I mean, like there was the Wounded Knee massacre. I thought,
We have some really horrible, awful history that people still end up going back and reinvesting in the government and saying government is the answer. And it's like, government's done some really bad things. Why do we want to keep making it the answer to all of our problems when it doesn't ever answer any of our
yeah,
problems?
no, 100%, just keeps getting worse. And Dave again said they should have let the parents who wanted to go in. Again, I'm a bit mixed on this one because again, if I were in that situation, I would have done something stupid and try to knock over a cop. Like I don't know, like. And
Yeah,
that's what a lot of parents did do. But I get why police officers like we don't need an extra person causing chaos and trying to like
they
deal with this. Because like in theory, right? Like maybe the cops outside didn't know exactly what the plan was inside. And then they're just like keep these people out so like someone's not barging in and like interfering with our ability to, you know, get the situation under
it
control,
would
right?
it would be hard not to fight that battle knowing my
Yeah.
kid is in that school. I
Exactly. Again, I can
yeah,
kind of see both sides of this again, and like the frustrating part is like the police officers on that line might not know exactly what's happening. They're
they're
tasked with doing this specific thing, and they
crowd
think the
control.
SWAT team is inside taking care of business. They don't exactly know why it's taking long either. Again, I want to like you know me, I'm pretty critical of police officers, and I have been in this show too. But like
Sure.
I also understand like
I
not wanting random adults who then could go in and get shot themselves
Yeah, look,
to
there's a
be jailed
balance
behind.
there. And I think when I get into criticizing police officers, I'm criticizing, as always, guys, like, individuals in a system aren't they bear some culpability, but for a fact, right? The system itself is the problem. All right. Our reliance on government is a system in and of itself
Yeah,
that is a problem. Okay. And we have two parties that use that power and they dangle it in front of your face like a carrot, or they whip you with the stick of that
Yeah.
power, and they just keep doing it, and we keep falling for it, and
Yeah.
that is the part that's driving me crazy.
Yeah, and that's again that's the part that's the other criticism of school resource officers they get to is like increased school resource officers sometimes doesn't necessarily lead to fewer violent incidents. It just leads to more kids with criminal records in high school.
They're
And so like
exactly.
now their life is, off track, but like no one's necessarily any safer. Again, the track record again, it's uneven on a school by school basis. Some schools might be better off, some schools are worse, but like as a whole, school resource officers don't necessarily keep violence out of schools. They don't necessarily stop school shooters. I mean, it's rare to look at a statistical analysis of this because there's so few of these events, but it does result in more kids getting criminal records.
Yeah. Should we go? We're not doing the radio show, right?
No, we're not doing the radio show. I figured we're gonna start talking about I wanted to get some of these comments though because
These are great comments.
Sorry. I was gonna get to Paula, one teacher with a handgun might have made a difference. Might have, yeah.
Might have.
I mean, and
there's still a natural right of not wanting to carry a gun.
That's tough. Again, I
can't force a teacher.
Even in Texas, where like teachers in theory could have guns, it didn't stop this person from doing it. And Paula also says cops are only as good as their commitment to saving the day in these situations. Yeah.
And they have a commitment to their families too. So they commit to protocol because protocol keeps them safe. And so, and also maybe, and I'm going to put this out there too, stopping those parents from going in and wandering the halls looking for the shooter maybe saved lives. Okay. So that's a real possibility that we have to accept. But yes, the 12-minute thing that you mentioned earlier that I was not particularly aware of, that is very upsetting.
And they said that the SWAT wasn't inside. I know they weren't inside. It was Border Patrol who ended up taking care of it somehow because they had like a some sort of special unit in the area.
Border Patrol guys were trained SWAT style.
But the town did have their own SWAT team again, and they talked about on like their Facebook post and like the bills justifying like creating the SWAT team is like we want to make sure if there's ever a school shooter here that like we're going to be able to do that and respond within minutes.
Wow.
And
unfortunately, they were not successful.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a bunch of other stuff here. Again, what's I want to spend too long on it because I'm also sick. But
Paula that I want to take a quick look at. Okay, someone posted the issue of the government response to COVID. We are simply just starting to see the real ramifications of it. Okay,
this one.
Yeah, somebody about maybe it was Dave, something about locking kids in their bedrooms, having them play video games. I mean, we made a huge mistake, and libertarians almost to a person were unequivocally against locking people down. Okay, they maybe some people were pro-vaccine, maybe some people were pro ID passport. I get it. Okay. But we were universally against lockdowns.
Yeah.
And we were against lockdowns before it was cool to be against lockdowns. A lot of people
like immediately, hey, this is what we need to have the choice to be able to do this. This goes a bit too far. No matter what other radio hosts in the Rochester area say about my position, that has always been my position.
Correct.
And the people saying otherwise are liars.
Wait, who's out? They don't want to debate me. You stood firm, man. You and I had disagreements about the passport, the vaccine. They were minor and respectful, but you were not in favor of locking down. You were in favor of businesses being able to choose who they served, and I get that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, again, businesses, if they want to choose to mask up or change their model of business, that's their choice. They can do that. I just didn't want Governor Cuomo or whoever.
We had cops chasing kids off playgrounds.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely ridiculous.
Craziness.
And it was ridiculous then too. Like it never made any sense. Like, okay, you can't go hang out alone on a beach or a playground. My goodness.
It was, people freaking out because there were people on a beach. Okay, that's not humanity. Okay, that's you being paranoid and responding to the demands of your masters. Okay, like stop it. That is not sensible. And your fear.
Yep. I'm just like, all right, you want to go back at 35 and then get the show back on track?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
might better go back.
All right, 10 seconds. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the
I
most
do like
famous
the
man
freedom
on
variant,
YouTube
bro.
right
I
now.
like
The
that
freedom
name.
variant. We'll stick to the freedom variant.
It rolls.
Tim O'Connor. And, thanks again for joining us on WYSL, or if you're listening to us on, the YouTube page, the Free Solution YouTube page, Free Solution Facebook page, the group, the Kevin Wilson pages, the Tim O'Connor pages, the podcast, wherever you're listening today. Appreciate y'all being here and listening to the show again. For the folks listening online, you guys have been super engaged, and I love having you guys as part of the discussion here. And I'm sorry we can't get to everything. Literally, we do need to eventually, call it a day. But
yeah, we should change the subject a little bit because
yeah,
there's always interesting stuff going on in New York State that needs to be dealt with. So what do you think? What should we talk about now, buddy?
well, we got to talk about this bill hasn't gotten a ton of coverage. I get the feeling it might get a little bit of coverage now, but it's going to be over a holiday weekend.
Oh yeah,
So
it's like deliberate, man. They're hiding it.
we'll see, because it looks like there's a chance that this bill might get voted on on Tuesday, right after the Memorial Day. And the bill is A08560C. There's an equivalent Senate bill, and what it does is it makes local elections outside of New York City occur in even numbered years. Again, if you are paying attention, as you know now, most local elections happen in odd number years. Your mayors, your city councils, your county ledge, most of the time that happens in odd number years.
And so what's important about that, guys, is that on off years, what we see happen is that smaller government people have better success. Okay, so your classic Republican who wants to go in and uh, shrink the county budget, he might pull off a win in an off year in New York State. But now, thanks to the benevolent overlords, go ahead, Kevin. You ready?
Right. Yeah. No, I'm right. If this bill passes, and if the Democrats are determined to pass it, they certainly will. The elections will be on gubernatorial and presidential years. And what the Republicans are accusing them of, and I get it, is that voter turnout for Democrats tends to be higher in those years. People tend to be more engaged, so that will boost their local election prospects, making it less likely that, or more likely rather, that people go in, vote on like the national issues, and then just vote one party all the way down, right?
Just
Like
go
they'll
right down, checking the boxes, and
whereas the idea is local elections, despite being lower turnout, the people who show up to those tend to usually care more about the specific local issues. Again, you're mad about a zoning issue, you're mad about or you care about raising the budget on your school, right? Well, that's usually a May election, but or you care about fixing roads in your city, fixing sidewalks in your city, that type of thing. If you want to engage with that sort of local activism, and you're paying attention to it, like those odd number years are the times to do it. And it's more likely the people who care about those issues are going to be more likely to show up and have their voices heard, instead of getting drowned out in the nationalization of politics.
It's a brilliant strategy. It's very Machiavellian, just like the gerrymandering, redistricting kind of stuff that they pulled this year. They are literally not even trying to hide it anymore. They are all about winning. They're all about one party rule, and they're about spending ridiculous amounts of money for programs and taxing everyone. This neo feudalism system that we're living in, guys, we cannot say enough about. You are renting your property. They will take it at the drop of a hat, and they don't even have to say they're sorry. They don't have to let you know. They can just simply take it, and that's a real problem. So, but I want to point out somewhere where we, and especially you conservatives, are getting pwned by them. Okay, this mail-in voting thing, we do in fact need a secure system that allows people to vote more and at their disposal. It needs to be secure. That's where we agree. But
Yeah.
we can't demand people show up at the voting booth on short notice or during busy times of the year. For example, this guy right here, Tim O'Connor, the Freedom variant, guys, the infamous Tim O'Connor would have gladly voted against his local school budget if only just to make a point that they don't get every single vote from every single person for no reason, okay, that they've got to earn that vote. I would have voted against it, but I was out of town working, and I do not have time to acquire a mail-in ballot or anything like that, okay? That's silly. But if I had some sort of blockchain secure technology that I could vote with, and I know people are afraid of computers, I get it, but trust me on this. We need this, because then at any point during the day, I could have punched up the screen, made a couple votes, and at least would have registered my dissent against the school board budget.
Yeah. I do agree with the blockchain voting. I think there should be a secure way to vote online, right? You know, we do all sorts of transactions where you have to prove your identity online, and you're able to do that effectively, right? Mm-hmm. I know though, Tim, you still gotta you gotta think ahead though. Request that mail-in ballot.
I guess, but then what if I'm home and I want to go vote in person? I guess there is the issue of, if you vote on voting day and you mail in a ballot, you can change your vote right up until the last second and vote twice.
Right? Yeah, I mean,
they'll record it.
Yeah. Well, you only one of those will be recorded.
But I believe it's the last one that you do. So if you mail one in and it's postmarked, the first, and you go vote on the second, the vote on the second is the one that counts.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. But we'll have to fact check that one, because I legit don't know.
I did hear from Dr. Victoria Alexander, and when they started doing the early voting, and then people started hearing about her, she's like, just go in and change your vote. Just vote on voting day, and you can change your vote. I think we did a show about it right about then, and people were like, oh, I already voted, and she's like, you can go vote on election day. That's the one that will count. So that was not actually verified, but I do believe it's accurate.
I didn't think the early voting one, because then they would have it marked down. Like the mail-in voting, they wouldn't necessarily know if you never mailed it in.
True.
And then if you had a blockchain voting system where you connected instantly with a database and you're able to verify when someone had voted and how, and you got a token to verify your identity and verify your participation and verify who your choices were. Again, that's a way we could do it. I don't think it's I don't have a lot of faith that the government can pull that off successfully.
No.
And certainly not cheaply.
You're right.
You're and let me play devil's advocate a little bit for this bill, though, just because one of the assemblymen talking about this bill is hey, this bill is going to save money. The state doesn't have to run elections, extra elections every other year now. We consolidate that, and we're going to not have these expenses every odd year. Is that a convincing argument?
Oh, it's a persuasive argument. And I get it. It actually does make sense. But you know what would be actually, well, so it makes sense that way, right? We're saving money, and so it is persuasive. But what would make more sense is for people to focus exclusively on local issues and forget about federal issues, because guess who doesn't, other than annoying you to no end, guess who has little to no effect on your life in reality? Nancy Pelosi. That's it. And I know people are yeah, but we got to get more people in there to beat Nancy Pelosi. And it's she doesn't do as much to mess up your life as your local town supervisor can. All right. They can do way more to mess up your life, as your local county board can, because they can do way more to back their place, take your property, and guys, they can do things like grant themselves special, lifetime health care, after winning 2 elections. They can come up with systems like that, that are incredibly beneficial to them and that cost you money and opportunity.
Yeah, no, again, you should pay attention to that. The federal ones, it's harder to move the needle on that. And again, I say that as someone who ran for Congress. Even if I won somehow, it would be really hard to push policy through in the position I'm in. It's
You'd have been so famous though. Winning the lottery.
I would have kicked butt on Twitter and TikTok when that came out.
Oh, you would have owned Twitter, man. You'd have 1 million followers on Twitter.
That's how it would have went. But all right. So when we come back, I think maybe we're gonna do some fake news
We should.
Monday. Yeah, fake
Yeah,
news
let's do it.
Monday. All
Yeah.
right. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're gonna be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Yeah, no, I'm yeah, get my phone, but I got a couple fake news items.
All right. I got it. I go with sometimes I just get things that I find interesting that I think we should talk about. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
I've got one of those, one in particular of those.
All right. We'll go back at 46. We'll jump right back in this.
Okay.
46 to 58. Sorry for coughing in the mic there, folks.
It's the state.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. It's Fake News Monday. Yeah, no, Fake News Monday. Yeah, Fake News Monday. So thanks again for joining us here on WYSL or all the places you can listen to us online, Free Solution Facebook page, YouTube channel, the group, the Tim O'Connor pages, the Kevin Wilson pages, wherever you're listening today. And it's said Tim and I want to do some fake news today because why not? It's fun. It's a holiday weekend.
It is.
All right. Do you want to go first, or you ready?
I've got one interesting one. I go with this thing. So basically, robotics is where it's been at for a couple of decades now. We have finally developed what is being called the world's smallest remote-controlled walking robot. What I kind of want to put on you, Kevin, is I want you to kind of guess how big this robot might be.
2 centimeters.
You would think, right? You're gonna have to go smaller.
Smaller. All right. I
Smaller.
mean, like, are we talking about, millimeters, nanometers?
We're not down to nanometers, but we're down to check this out. This is pretty interesting, okay, and terrifying in a way if but this world's smallest robot that is mobile. It's like built like a crab, right? It's got like 8 legs. They control it with lasers, a tiny little laser. It is 1/2 of a millimeter wide. One
Wow.
half of a millimeter. And it's small. So basically it's smaller than the thickness of a penny. Like
Yeah.
this thing is that small. You imagine like I mean, have you ever seen any of those drone videos about how they're little flying death machines? Could you imagine what you could do with one of these things?
Oh no, like I mean, like I think I've seen videos about stuff similar to that, right? They gotta like poke it, and they're hoping to eventually like use it for like medical uses and stuff, right? Like you can get into a lot smaller spaces with these robots, but I don't know. Eventually, we're gonna have a future with like nanobots, and it's either gonna be very cool or very terrifying.
Why not
Maybe
both?
both.
Right?
Yeah,
Why
no,
not
probably
both?
both.
We don't. I don't. The people who are in charge of that technology are going to come up with amazing and disgusting ways of killing people with these things. That's number one. Because if it can go inside your body and fix you, it can go inside your body and tear you apart. That's a reality, bro.
True.
Like we have
Double-edged
to deal
sword,
with that.
you know.
And we cannot believe in the altruism of every single person on the face of the planet. That's for sure.
No, probably not. Not in the altruism of everybody. Some people might use it for evil.
I read a book about the 3 laws of robotics, and even the 3 laws of robotics can be bent against itself. Like there's no way around it. Robots are dangerous. Also,
I mean,
they're
it's
not dangerous.
the whole like iRobot thing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is both cool and terrifying. I'm a total sci-fi nerd, and I've been going through like old sci-fi, reading like Heinlein, and I just read Old Man's War, which is great. And I love like reading about that stuff conceived from like the 70s, 80s, etc. But yeah, like some of the applications are terrible, and some of them are very cool if we ever get to that point.
I also, Kevin, believe it or not, have read mounds and mounds and mounds of science fiction. Like I
Yeah.
used to read everything in sight when I was younger. I definitely gave up that habit.
I don't know. We gotta like do a sci-fi like fun show one time, and we should invite Andrew Heaton on for that one because he hosts a sci-fi libertarian podcast.
Okay.
And so Shelly says my daughter works on robots that touch every pill made by the company and test the pH level on every single pill. I'm like, that's cool. Like I think that's awesome.
That's amazing. That's really good. Like I did read a story about how robotics even turns negative though, like where we get into so much robotics and we have such a surplus and such a plenty that food stamps kind of become the inverse relationship. Now you're required to consume X amount of goods and services, the poorer you are. Okay. And because of such a massive surplus created by the automation of goods and services. And so that was a really interesting story.
If
It
we get
was
to
really
a post-scarcity society, yeah, it's a different set of issues.
luckily
and
we still have Malthusians running the world, so we don't have to worry about ever not being afraid of
yeah,
needing
well,
to trim the population by 50%. We always need to be afraid of that.
And if you don't know what a Malthusian is, just think of Thanos. That's what it is.
Yeah, Thanos is a Malthusian. And guys, amazingly enough, Malthusians have been around forever. Like when there was 500,000 people on the planet, there were still Malthusians.
They're like, there's too many people. We're all going to starve. And it turns out,
unironically,
you keep finding
they've been
new
around
ways
forever.
to like, find new food and etc. Yeah, and I'll throw this out there for it's a libertarian science fiction podcast. Yeah, it's Alienating the Audience by Andrew Heaton again. And it's not a sponsored thing. I like the podcast. I think it's a lot of fun, because he's an interesting and entertaining libertarian, and he has Star Trek stuff, Star Wars stuff, Heinlein stuff. I've heard about Old Man's War from this thing. It's all sorts of science fiction stuff that gets thrown in there.
And he's funny, guys. Like he's funny.
He's a comedian.
He's enjoyable.
So anyway, I want to get to some potential fake news items. Real headline or fake headline? Walmart pulls Juneteenth ice cream from shelves after criticism. Real or fake news?
Okay, well, let me just say that I'm not sure I was ever happy with pulling Aunt Jemima off of and Uncle Ben off of rice. Like I'm not sure I was ever happy about that stuff. So let's just say that's gotta be true, man, because we can't. I don't know. We canceled the Regents and stuff like that for whatever reason.
Oh, I never ended up getting to that issue the other day. I wanted to,
so,
but
it's true, right? It's true.
Yeah, it's true. So they made a Juneteenth ice cream. So a bunch of other brands did stuff like that too. Like Vaseline made a limited Juneteenth like container, I guess. Like I saw that going around Facebook. I know the Walmart one is confirmed. I don't 100% know that the Vaseline one is, but I did see that. Like there's all these companies that did make like Juneteenth themed stuff. And like to me, like I like the idea of Juneteenth. I think it's cool to great to celebrate like the final actual emancipation, as word got of the Emancipation Proclamation traveled, so that is a great and worthwhile thing to celebrate. I get why some folks are like, yeah, maybe Walmart don't make a ice cream around it. It's a little bit missing the point. I mean, although to me it's no more offensive than like MLK Day, like mattress sale type of stuff. But
and that's what they do, right? So
yeah.
Is it enlightened capitalism to make a Juneteenth thing? Like
well, like it was an attempt at being like woke, right? Like it's like, hey, we want to like do this, we want to celebrate. And I see this happen a bunch with like well-meaning, usually white folks are like, yeah, we need to like show that we're like all about Juneteenth, and and I'm like, well, okay, like it's not just about taking a day off and selling products, and like doing a sale or something. Like it has actual like historical significance, and like if you're gonna do that, like talk about that.
Yeah,
right.
I'm disappointed in a way. Like I think I would have bought Juneteenth ice cream. I mean,
it actually sounds pretty good. It is red velvet cake and like cheesecake. I was like, that sounds great. Like I wish I had come across some of that. I'd totally eat that.
I didn't hear chocolate, and chocolate's my go-to when it comes to these things.
I know. I'd get that though. All right. Do you got another one, or you want me to go again?
I think you probably got to go again.
All right. Real news or fake news? Kellogg spokesperson announces Rice Krispie mascot Pop is now a trans woman.
Wow. I mean, I think that society is misunderstanding what it is to be woke and aware of our culture because I'm gonna again assume that this is 100% true. Please let me be wrong though. This is true.
You are wrong on this one. That's
No,
fake.
that was
Yep.
well played, Kevin, because I
That's
mean,
fake. I mean, like again, it has some truthiness to it, right? You know, like you, a lot of these brands are just trying to show that they're on the cutting edge of like acceptance culture, you know, and in some ways it's really well intentioned, and in other ways it ends up being a bit of a farce. Um, and so
I always kind of felt like they were a little bit genderless, really. Like they were not, you know,
Shelly didn't know what gender they were. I don't know. I thought Snap, Crackle, and Pop were like boys, but like they're not talking about their gender and sexuality. Like they're selling you
they're
cereal. Don't
they're
overthink it.
elves, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
I
do
mean, yeah,
elves
like
even have a
it doesn't really
gender?
matter, right? Like just
Yeah,
yeah,
come
don't
on.
overthink it, and you know,
Can't we just can we
so
just
it was
stop?
fake though. It's fake.
Okay,
It
phew.
was fake. You know,
I know,
that's
but still, Kevin, still, I'm just saying it's so freaking plausible that I'm still upset over it. Like that's where I'm at right now.
yeah. Yeah, let's say it has that truthiness to it. And Gene says, you know, the Walmart thing has something to do with cultural appropriation. Yeah, I mean, again, it's cultural appropriation. Like a lot of times I get frustrated with this term because it's used in a way to like say like you can't like participate and engage with stuff that is allegedly done by other cultures, right? Even though all of the cultures that exist nowadays have built upon and mixed and like reinvented stuff from each other, right? Like there's no like
Absolutely.
true cultural lineage of like almost anything. But you know, cultural appropriate when you take something that is a celebrated holiday in the Black community that didn't come to vogue until the last 2 years and capitalize on it, and you tend to try to make money off of that thing that you had nothing to do with a couple years ago. I get why some people are like, that's kind of gross.
I
So
mean, I
it's just
guess I get it, but like, didn't the Italians like culturally appropriate pasta from the Chinese? Like, should
oh
we
yeah.
be upset about that?
No, I mean, like again, I don't care. Like food stuff, like it's funny. A lot of like traditional, you know, like Vietnamese food is like French cuisine mixed with local traditions, right? Like that's what it is. You know, a lot of European food, again, as you point out, like Italian food is a combination of a whole bunch of different cultures. Tomatoes didn't exist there until you know, I don't know, it's like 150
1975.
years. Yeah. Um,
Fake news.
but all right, well that that's all I have for Fake News Friday, which is a good thing because you know I'm gonna lose my voice in a second. But thanks again for joining us here on a free solution. I hope everyone has had a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend. Hope you have a wonderful and safe rest of your day. I will talk to you on Wednesday. Take care. All right.
All right. Poor guy. Oh, Kevin, that's rough. I've been there though. Allergies combined with everything else. It's just a
Yeah,
lot of pollen in the air. So, guys, thank
but
you for all the great comments. We got a good
yeah,
number of likes. We had a great number of views. Kevin, it's our time. It's our time. This is exploding.
yeah,
You didn't seem as excited
sure
about that
is.
as I
No,
was.
I was suppressing another cough,
Oh,
but sure is.
uh,
And thanks, Shelly.
thank you, Shelly. Guys,
Yeah,
we enjoyed this. Well, we enjoyed doing it. Kevin, thank you for asking me to be on today. Um,
yeah,
it's much appreciated.
yep, sure. And
And we're gonna
again,
try to do the Thursday thing anyway. Like
yeah,
it's
we're gonna try to do
something.
it. You know, just like moving forward, as we talked about last week. Like we're probably gonna treat it more like a regular podcast, where we just like run straight through. Again, we need to pre-record something for Monday because our producer's gonna be out of the studio, so that's why we
Yeah,
did like the show format this time.
yeah. Hey,
Um,
did you see who liked our show by any chance? Derek Gibson was out in the audience there tonight. Derek
oh
is a
yeah,
good guy. He
nice.
came on the show. He was brave enough to come on the show with some crazy libertarians. I don't know how he made out as far as getting enough signatures to get on the ballot, but I know
Yeah,
that he was going after the Republican nomination for the governorship, and I wished him well. He was pretty cool about a lot of things. I mean, there was just the one thing that he said that's like, we should bring in the National Guard to straighten out the situation in New York City. But I don't know how bad the violence is there. I do know that there's that probably the full story isn't being told, right? About how much violence is going on in the subways, because none of that will make it to the mainstream media. So some of it is making it to the mainstream media. So I've got to imagine it's a pretty huge deal right now in New York City.
Yeah, it's one of those things tough to measure. People are reminded on, listen to a podcast, Fifth Column podcast, on a libertarian podcast, have them from New York City, and they're talking about like somewhere like, no, it's fine. New York it's better than the 80s. And well, that's first thing, well, that's not really saying much.
That's not. It was like a wretched hive of what villainy, scum and villainy. Like,
yeah, right.
It was some Star Wars quote in there I'm trying to work in. That's fantastic, Shelley. I got a bunch of signatures too. I finally got one of the people that from the OCLP, Oswego County Libertarian Party, running around getting signatures besides me. I had a lot of help from people that weren't libertarians, Kevin. It was amazing.
Nice.
Like I just kept asking, and people just kept saying yes. They'd take their petition into this business. They'd take their petition to their house. They'd go knock on doors. We have at the very least successfully raised awareness of flare sharp, for sure. And so I'm worried. Sign a petition, get more people to sign a petition. We got time to get them in. Not much, but we get enough, people will run around and pick them up and take them to Albany for you. Nice. I promise.
Yeah, just home stretch, but gotta keep getting them. All right, folks. Time for me to go to bed.
Kevin get some sleep.
All right. Thanks again for joining us. Have a wonderful night. Take care.